Get some Heyman Ale for the Hawks game this weekend, or maybe the Braves, or maybe you just want to kick it. It's at every Publix in the state of Georgia, and it's at your local package store. Joining us here is Ross Tucker. We love Ross. He is a very, very brilliant football mind. Odyssey NFL Insider Ross Tucker. Insider Calls presented by Odyssey NFL Draft Show. My boys, Brian Baldinger, Jason LaConfora. On the first night of the draft, you can join those guys for the inside scoop on all the best prospects for the Falcons, guys. It starts Thursday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the free Odyssey app, and check out our podcast called In the Huddle. All right, Ross Tucker, Mike and I have been going back and forth on this, and I know you're close to the Philly organization. You call their games. We've been talking about Bijan Robinson, and Mike's been doing all these trades, and every time he trades out of the top 10, the Eagles end up taking Bijan Robinson. And we've been saying, at least I have for weeks now, that if he is the best player on the board, the Falcons can't pass him up. I want to know what the perspective is up there with the Eagles and what they're thinking about, because if that's true, then we're screwed.
Well, so first of all, you guys still haven't sent me any of that Heyman beer.
I know. It's coming.
And you understand how this works? People send me beer all the time because when I post on social media, show me your beer, it gets like crazy engagement. I guess it doesn't help you that much if it's only being sold down there in Georgia. But the point is we can still I can be your bridge to start the national sales plan.
Well, we'd love
I can be the guy that helps the expansion, because I love that you guys literally, knowing I was coming on with you two, cracked my first beer 7 seconds before this interview started. Nice. So every time, I just want everybody driving in their car to realize this, every time you guys ask me a question, I'm going to be debating how big of a sip I can have during that break and talking before I answer the next valuable question that you ask me. So I got to tell you, I guess this is kind of a joke, but it'd be awesome if the Eagles took Bijan Robinson, primarily because I love saying Bijan. It's just such a pleasing thing to say. I do the preseason games on TV. I do the pregame on the radio. I do a bunch of the radio stuff. I would just love to say Bijan for the next 5 years. It's almost like Madonna. Nobody even says the guy's last name. He's just Bijan. I will tell you this, though. It would surprise me. It would surprise me if the Eagles took him for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are so committed to positional value that taking him at 10 would really be out of character for them. Now, I will say this. They are big believers in zigging when everybody else zags. So maybe they feel like it swung too far in the devalued running back position, way, and they do take him. That would surprise me. I think if they took him, it would be after a trade down. They have the best offensive line in pro football. The guy that got the biggest contract of any of the free agent running backs was Miles Sanders, and he got outplayed and outsnapped in the playoffs by Kenny Gainwell. So they have Kenny Gainwell, whose third-year rookie contract. They brought back Boston Scott, who's kind of Mr. Reliable. And then their Bijan, their sort of big play guy, is Rashad Penny, who they signed for peanuts in free agency. Now, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but they're kind of hoping that maybe it works. Maybe he does stay healthy and is able to have a big year for them. So it would surprise me if they did that. I don't think they will. I also don't really think, quite frankly, that the Falcons need to do that. I mean, I thought Algier did some really good things last year. Obviously, Cordell Patterson, we know what he can do. I even thought Huntley did some good things. I think the Falcons, with the way they're building it, to take him, or they drafted 8, right?
Yep.
That would really surprise me.
It is Ross Tucker, the perfect guest for a Friday. Have a beer. And so Chris, by the way, we're going to UPS it. So what Brown can do for us, we'll get the beer up to you up there in Pennsylvania and probably violate many state liquor laws. It is Ross Tucker with us.
It to other people.
Yeah, we can do it. Hey, Ross, by the way, with the quarterback situation, has it now sort of become gospel that Bryce is clearly better than C.J. Stroud, and there's no doubt Bryce is number one now?
3.5 sips, by the way, Mike. That was well done by you.
Thank you.
3.5 sips. That was well done. So I have never understood, watching them play the last couple years, why anybody would take C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young other than the size thing, which at this point seems like a weird reason to take one guy over another. Like, I mean, I don't know. I thought we kind of passed the size thing when we started taking Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield number 1 overall. Now, the flip side to that is I think the jury's kind of out on both those guys. You know, I mean, Baker's bouncing around. Kyler, I don't know that the Cardinals are thrilled that they gave him that contract. But, guys, Alabama is like the Cowboys. Every game they play is on national television. I honestly don't remember the guy having a bad game. I mean, 2 years, I remember having a bad game. And, you know, 2 years ago, I felt like they were loaded. I don't know that I really felt that way this year watching Alabama.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like their O-line was the best. It wasn't like they had all these first-round receivers. It just wasn't. It wasn't like the Alabamas of old. And even when they lost these games, like at Tennessee, it was like 45-42, and he still scored 40 points. He has an unbelievable knack of somehow making the right play at the right time. And you think, oh, yeah, he got fortunate there. But then he does it, like, almost every time. And I guess I kind of get the concern about his weight, but, you know, football's kind of changed a little bit. You know, I mean, I'd almost rather have a guy like Bryce Young that's a $195 and is a good mover within the pocket than Baker, who, I don't know, was he 210, 215, and takes more hits. I don't know. I mean, is 15 pounds worth taking more shots? It doesn't make sense to me, logically. So I'm a huge Bryce Young fan. I'm not surprised. It feels like that's who Carolina is going to take. I think he's a fantastic player. And look, to be 5'10" and a quarter and you get offered a scholarship by Alabama, you don't have any idea how good you have to be.
No.
And then to be 5'10" and a quarter and you're going to be the number one pick, you have any idea how good you have to be? I mean, he's just good.
We just comp him to Drew Brees, you know, instead of because he doesn't run. He's not going to be a dual threat guy. He's in the pocket. To me, he's a Drew Brees.
Yeah, I'll say this, though, Ross. I mean, he can make plays with his legs, and his escapability is a plus. You know, when we talk about guys wanting to run, I don't think any of these guys want to run. They want to make plays with their legs when they have to, and I think that's where the league is right now. I want to ask you about O-linemen, because if you don't think we're going, a skill player, then what about the Peter Skoronski kid out of Northwestern? He probably will be there at 8 as we talk about our Falcons. What do you think about these O-linemen?
Yeah, well, I love Skoronski. First of all, like, you don't have a choice but to be a good offensive lineman if your last name's Skoronski. I mean, what else are you going to do?
And your grandfather played for Vince Lombardi, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to be, a doctor? Nobody's going to Dr. Skoronski. I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, you got to be a football player. I mean, you don't really have much of a choice. So I think I love him. You know, he reminds me of like Zach Martin and Brandon Sheriff, where I think when you look at him and his arm length and his size, I think he could absolutely be a starting tackle in the NFL, but probably a Pro Bowl guard. You know, they're talking a lot in Philly about the Eagles drafting an offensive lineman, even though they have the best O-line in football, because, you know, there's debate whether or not O-line or D-line is the second most important position after quarterback. I love Skoronski. And I got to tell you guys as well, I kind of love what the Falcons have done this offseason. You know what is so interesting to me? Everybody in the NFC South, other than the Bucs, is acting like they think they can win the division. You notice that?
Yeah.
Like the Bucs have all the cap issues and the dead cap from Brady or whatever, and they're kind of just like, yeah, this is not going to be our year. But the Panthers, for having number one pick, the amount of veteran, like Thielen and Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst, they're kind of going for it. You know, they're kind of betting on their number one pick quarterback being good enough to give them a chance to win the division. The Saints bring in Derek Carr, the Falcons, with what they've done, I mean, I can't remember the last time a team signed as many guys on defense in one free agency offseason as the Atlanta Falcons. What is it, 27 guys at this point, 28?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And guys like Calais Campbell, listen, if you're the Falcons and you sign Calais Campbell, you think you can win this year. And I don't really blame them. I mean, is Ritter going to be worse than Mariota was last year? I don't think so.
No.
I think they'll be better at quarterback. I think they'll be just as good, if not better, up front. Drake London, and they get a healthy Kyle Pitts. And I kind of like that they got Scotty Miller in there. Just get the fastest dude you can to make sure teams at least have to be concerned about a deep threat like that. And then the way they fortified the defense, their defense can't help but be decently better than it was, maybe probably significantly better than it was last year. I mean, right now, it's interesting because I think the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, that's asking a lot of a rookie quarterback, but you guys know I believe in Bryce Young. Right now, I feel like all those teams are between 7 to 10 wins, maybe 11, just battling it out. I mean, I feel like the NFC South is going to be awesome next year. Those teams battling it out to see who can win the division.
It is our man Ross Tucker giving us a great breakdown. Yeah, man, we added Bud Dupree. We'll talk about that coming up in our big story. But we got more depth than we've had since the Super Bowl season, if we're honest. Hey, by the way, do any of these edge rushers impress you enough to say that you got to take him at 8? Like if a guy like, I guess, Tyree Wilson slides to us. And we've already talked about Jalen Carter. I don't know. By the way, where do you stand on Jalen Carter? Do you feel you can surround him with older veteran guys? Or do you say it's too much of a risk at 8? If he slips.
All right, so first of all, I would love, honestly, if the Falcons got Tyree Wilson, if Will Anderson somehow slipped to them, I think you can even make an argument for Nolan Smith and Van Ness, even though people think that they could get him a little bit later. I do think that's the position where it would be fantastic if they were able to add somebody. Now, I don't know how they feel. Do you guys know how they feel about Ebiketie? How did he play last year?
He's a work in progress. I mean, he didn't exactly pop, but he was that second tier of edge rushers last year's draft.
Yeah, he was very impressive. His 1 year at Penn State. I was just curious. I didn't remember him doing much this year. Jalen Carter, you guys would probably know more than I do about the background stuff. It's funny because I've had scouts tell me that the red flags, like when a guy has red flags, it always becomes an issue at some point. Like the red flag always sort of comes to roost. That said, sometimes guys do have like crazy awesome careers before they have off the field issues. Guys like Randy Moss or Warren Sapp come to mind, right? Like they both fell because of different red flags. And I know they've had issues, towards the end of their careers, or I guess Sapp was since he got in the media or whatever. But, I mean, they're both Hall of Fame players. So, nobody would probably know more about Jalen Carter than the Atlanta Falcons being there and being close to the Bulldogs and finding out what he did. I mean, last year, I thought he was their best player. And they had all these guys. They had Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall pick. And that's the thing I think is really interesting. I think there's a lot of people in Philly that are hoping Carter falls 10 and the Eagles take him because they drafted Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean last year. So they got 2 guys that know him, a year older than him. Plus they got Fletcher Cox at D tackle. So, most Eagles fans I talk to are like praying that Jalen Carter falls to 10 so that the Eagles can take him.
Yeah, so you guys are just going to recreate the championship dog defense up there, huh?
Literally.
Well, they lost Hargrave. I think you can argue that Javon Hargrave going to the Niners was maybe the most impactful free agent move because how often do you get a great player going from the one NFC Championship game team to the other?
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
We could talk about the free agency and the money these guys get and this guy and that guy, but a lot of times they're going to bad teams, right? A lot of times they're going to teams that aren't really contenders. It's almost like when Dion went from the Cowboys to the Niners, back to the Cowboys or whatever. It's like it's unusual for a player to flip between the two best teams in a conference like Hargrave just did.
Ross Tucker, it's always a pleasure. Odyssey NFL Insider again. Insider Calls presented by Odyssey NFL Draft Show. Our buddy Baldy and Jason LaConfort on the first night of the draft for an inside scoop on all the best prospects for the Falcons. Starts Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's free on the Odyssey app. And check out our podcast, In the Huddle, as well, since we're promoting it. Ross Tucker, thanks so much, man, and enjoy your brew. We'll send you some.
I appreciate it. I can't wait to get it. I have one sip left of a 7% IPA.
Very nice.
All during this interview. So, Atlanta, the people of Atlanta, you are welcome. Follow me at Ross Tucker NFL. And you guys, don't be strangers. Get me on more often. I love talking with you, too.
Right on, brother. That's good beer management right there, Carl Dukes.
He managed that very well.